With Shabbos this week, myself and my wife Fruma are very excited as our son Yossi and Leah had a little girl in Florida and named it after my mother, Gutanava, the first in my amongst my children to have a name after my mother, which is very special for me. And it goes, of course, to the importance of children. I was just speaking to my nephew. He lives in Los Angeles, and he was flying from Los Angeles to New York just now, just getting off the plane as I was speaking to him. And he says to me, normally when I'm on the plane, he's the kind of guy who goes around the plane. There's been videos about him. He goes around the plane and tries to put on tefillin on people, and is quite successful at it. Or I spend my time and study and Hasidic philosophy and learning and studying on the plane. And this time he has two little children, and he's basically chasing them up and down the plane. If they're anything like he was, I'm sure he is chasing them up and down the plane. Um, and he was thinking to himself, he had an epiphany. He had one of those moments where he says to his wife, normally I sit and learn when I'm on the plane going from here to there, or I am doing what's called miftzayim, trying to encourage Jews to put on tefillin. But taking care of these children is no less of a mitzvah. It's no less of a special feat and purpose than doing all those other things. And that is indeed true. Of course, the importance of children and raising children, educating children is quite significant within Judaism, not just significant. We would have known this already, the importance of children from the previous Torah portions where we see how Sarah and Rivka wanted children. But this week, Rachel adds a layer. Rachel says to Yaakov, to her husband Yaakov, Hava li banim mimayin meisanoichi. Give me children, otherwise I will die. Rachel is saying that without children, her life is not worth living. That is quite another step. Children are life itself. Many of us consider how many children to have. We plan our families. We use different means to stop ourselves from having children. And even when falling pregnant, sometimes abort the future possible child. Because many times it's for good reasons, but other times it's inconvenient. We don't feel we have the financial capacity, the ability to educate at the highest levels. And because of that, we don't bring children into this world. The Torah teaches us from Rachel's statement that there's nothing more important and valuable than children. There's nothing as great as bringing a child into this world. And God, the one who gives life, as the Talmud tells us, gives parnasa. Not only does it give parnasa for that child, as the Talmud says, that the child is born with its bread in its hand, but actually opens the spigots, opens the funnel for more blessing and more parnasa. Besides the fact that children are always a blessing for our family life, for marriage. They bring husband and wife together in a very strong way. And so it is so important and valuable to try to do whatever we can to have that one more child. If our birth rate in Australia was higher, it would solve a lot of economic issues. It would really support the entire country. We talk about people doing things for the country. Well, there's nothing greater that one can do than to have another child. There is a story that in the 1970s in Israel, the justice minister's name was Shmuel Tamir. And they were talking at that time about a law against abortion. And he, as the justice minister, was extremely opposed. He was very much for legalizing, allowing all kinds of abortions. So a delegation of rabbis came to visit him. And one of them was a Rabbi Levin, He was the son of the famed Tzaddik of Jerusalem, Rabbi Aryeh Levin. So this son of the Aryeh Levin, Raphael Levin, says to the minister, let me tell you a story that I heard from my father. My father related to me that there was this young couple many years ago in Israel, and soon after getting married, she fell pregnant. They didn't have the economic ability to raise the child or to give birth to the child, and therefore they decided they're going to have an abortion. Her parents ran to my father, Rabbi Aryeh Levin, and said, please see what you can do. Now, Rabbi Aryeh Levin lived in Jerusalem, and this young couple lived in Ramat Gan, which was a long way at the time. He made his way to the couple's apartment, knocked on the door, and he came into the house. And he sat down, and he didn't say a word. Sometimes words cannot communicate something powerfully enough. And he sat there, and he just started crying. He cried and cried for the pain of the unborn child, until the woman started crying too. And she said to him, I commit to you, I will not go through with an abortion. That child was born, and at his bris they gave him a name, Shmuel. And Raphael Levin looks at Shmuel Tamir and says to him, and do you know who that child is? That's you, Shmuel Tamir. He called immediately after the meeting, he called his mother, and he asked her if it was true, to which his mother said, yes, that is indeed true. She got all emotional, and she confirmed and explained that they had nothing, they had no way of supporting, but you know what? I did the right thing. I gave you life, and look the beautiful life that you've lived. And so what this story tells us is not only that Shmuel Tamir got emotionally affected because it was a personal story about him, but he realized that every abortion is not just about the comfort of the parents, but it is about the possibility of life, his life in this case, a life that would have been snuffed out if she would have gone through with it, or a life lived to its fullest as he had. This is what Rachel says to Yaakov, if I have no children, I have no life. Because children are the stuff of life. And so let us do what we can to raise our children, educate our children, our grandchildren in the best possible way. And if we're at the crossroads considering having or not having another child, let's be like Rachel and realize that every child is bringing the gift of God into this world, and another part of Hashem into this world. It is good for our families. It's good for our communities. It is good for the world. It is what will ultimately bring the Geula, as we're told, that Mashiach will come when every child who's destined to be born will finally come into this world. Good Shabbos.